I know that there are some of you out there that may not love Nick Caserio, and that's okay. But you can give the man one thing. He is a wheeler and dealer. And we got a lot to talk about tonight on the Locked on Texans Squad show.
Listen, he can wheel and deal all he wants. The fact remains is David Montgomery, great acquire. Moving on from Tytus Howard, when you now have to fill 4 spots, I don't know how he's going to do it.
Yeehaw! It's time for the Texans Squad. Everything Houston Texans, every week. Bringing you the big hits, game-changing plays, and all the action straight from the Lone Star State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Saddle up and squad up. It's the Texans Squad show starting now.
And we're running that 2-man game tonight on the Squad Show. Michael Connor and John Hickman. Stan might pop by at some point. We'll see, and I'm sure he's got plenty of opinions if he does, but we got a lot to get into tonight here on the Locked on Texans Squad Show. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching live, of course, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Check John's daily work. He, of course, has had some opinions to put out there since the last time that we've talked, because there's been a lot going on this week for the Houston Texans.
Yes,
they got it started with a bang. You sent it to us Monday morning, and I was out of pocket Monday. I had my stuff going on, and I completely didn't see anything until the end of the day. And when I saw, first of all, the Titus Howard trade, John, it was interesting. And then obviously following that up with the David Montgomery thing, we can kind of break them all down together. But I think the most important one to start with is moving on from Tytus Howard. We can, if people have listened to this show and watched this show, it's kind of like the one we did over the weekend. We talked about these two specific guys that were very much involved in the news today, because Tytus Howard had a bunch of money on the books for this season. The Texans have to create cap space. We wondered, aloud, what could they do? I even asked you guys, do you think they could trade him? I don't remember what you guys said to that one, honestly. But here we go. He shipped off to the Cleveland Browns, where he gets new money there in Cleveland. What did you make overall of the deal?
So they get a 5th round pick back for Tytus Howard for this year. Houston now has 2 5th round picks, and I think it's important to note that before we talk about David Montgomery. But if I can just look at the move to get off of Tytus Howard. Number one, this was in many ways Tytus Howard's best year without Laremy Tunsil, and which I thought was important to point out. He was a leader in the locker room, which is the first time him being the vet, homegrown vet in that locker room. And I thought in many ways Tytus Howard stepped up to the plate. I thought he played at a Pro Bowl level. But the fact remains is 2 things, right? If they were to have to restructure his deal for another year, now you're looking at Tytus Howard deal getting in the way of Will Anderson, CJ Stroud, right? Because that restructure would eventually lead to a contract extension. And I don't think right now Houston is in the business of paying. He was due $27 million this year.
Yeah.
Paying that amount of money to a offensive lineman. And no disrespect when I say this, but hadn't sniffed the Pro Bowl, hadn't sniffed an All-Pro, not a vote. So you look at it from a money standpoint, it just makes sense. And also, last year they move on from Laremy Tunsil. This year they move on from Tytus Howard. I think something that we should discuss and consider is, in many ways, though Howard was very versatile, which I kind of hate versatile linemen because, that's just
you're not great at one position where you're locked in.
I don't like that, and it's really unfair to the players. It's really been unfair to Tytus Howard, if we're being honest. Again, I thought if he would have stayed at right tackle or started the year off at left guard, he would have had a Pro Bowl nod. My opinions, and he talked about that in the locker room. But the question always comes back to, for both Tunsil and Howard now, the makeup of what they bring for this offensive line. Those are 2 finesse, smooth, cool guys, man. You know what I mean? And with Cole Popovich not running things up front, and this team wanted to be a true downhill, running the ball type of team, physical, punch in the mouth, the whole 9, however you want to describe it. I don't know if Tytus Howard is that fit, and if he ever was going to be a fit for that. So, again, I look at the money and how it will create space moving forward for the Houston Texans, but I also think this was a culture move. And I'm not saying that Titus Howard never bought in, because he absolutely did. But for the amount of money that they were going to have to pay him in an extension or restructure the following year or so.
I mean, what do you get, like $40 million in new money or something?
45.
Okay.
45. And Cleveland had to kind of pay him that, which because they don't have an offensive line. All of those guys are, free agents. And shout out to Nick Caserio, because I think that he recognized that. Titus, thank you for everything you've done, especially since I've gotten to Houston. I'm going to send you to a place where you can be established and get your money and get paid one more time. But it boils down to fit. And I'm not sure if Titus Howard is the fit for a team that struggled to run the ball consistently, didn't get a good inside push, didn't climb to the second level consistently to knock linebackers out the way. Titus was a tackle playing guard, and now I think he has an opportunity to establish himself at tackle in a place where they absolutely need him. But MC, I want to toss it back to you. Now you're looking at an offensive line like with Titus Howard. At the very least, you have Ariante Aristide and Titus Howard. Now, well, Titus is gone. Ingram is a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
You still have no answer at left guard. And without Titus Howard, you're now looking for an answer at right tackle and left guard, unless Houston feels highly about Blake Fisher. And many of us feel like they got to do something with the center position. So now you're looking at 5 spots that need to be replaced with the exit of Tytus Howard. Do you feel like Caserio can get it done? Can he rebuild it?
I think that there's no reason to believe that suddenly they're going to build a juggernaut of an offensive line, because to this point of his tenure, we do know that has been the biggest massive issue that we've talked about. They've never built a line that is extremely strong. It kept C.J. Stroud from being sacked all year last year for the most part. We know that, but he still didn't always have all the time that he needed back there. And you're right. Like, we played the clip the other day of him talking about Jake Andrews. Like, that didn't sound like a confident clip of, I want this guy back as my starting center. So you need somebody there. To me, and you tell me where you are here, like, this screams you have to pay Ed Ingram to bring him back. Like, I don't think you can let him walk away at this point, because how are you going to fill the rest of these voids? You're obviously going to have to draft somebody in this draft. Mm-hmm. And then I do wonder, we brought it up a little bit the other day too with Ursary. Are you looking for a left tackle or are you looking for a right tackle? Where is he going to slot in those 2 spots, and how are you acquiring either side of that line? Because I do think it is a question of which side of the line Ursary plays next year.
I think he needs to stay at left.
I would agree with you, but like, I do wonder, we brought up, the Trent Williams thing, other names, like you hear some people that are out there saying that people across the league are talking like maybe the Texans want to put him at right and draft a left. I don't know. It seems wild.
They are so comfortable with this notion that, he can play both sides. He can figure it out. And if I'm an offensive lineman, I would hate that. Yeah. Because, and I'll get to your question about, what they need to do about the offensive line, but my goodness, can I get established at a position so I can earn me some money? Because in a lot of ways, outside of Laremy Tunsil, who they kept re-upping on, and they finally moved on from him in 2025, but like Tytus Howard, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of forced to come back to you guys because teams around the league may not view me or regard me as high because I've had to play this position, that position, that position. And he hadn't had an opportunity to be settled in and locked in on one position in a few seasons. And so if Houston wants to right their wrong, and if they want to give a real franchise left tackle a shot, don't move Ursary. Do not move Ursary. He performed well last year. And also, I think we look at moving on from Tytus Howard the following year after moving on from Laremy Tunsil. Goodness gracious, C.J. Stroud, we talked about it last week. He's had a first-time play caller in 23, right, and also in 25. But in every year, he's had a new center. Those centers have been either young or just not good. In 25, you move on from his bodyguard. In 26, now you move on from another bodyguard. And you're having conversations about moving another young bodyguard around on this offensive line. Goodness gracious. And this is without Ed Ingram being back officially. Yeah. You're looking at an offensive line that they don't know what continuity is. So, like, that's a problem, man. I know we're going to get into the David Montgomery trade, and now I got to talk. And I'm taking the glasses off it. And stop me if you feel differently. If you guys are watching on YouTube, I want to hear your thoughts. But the problem is with Nick Caserio is when we talk about ruining a young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line free agency since 2021, since he took over. Scott Questenberry, AJ Cann, Justin Britt, Justin McCoy. What's that? Questenberry? No, Justin Britt just upped and retired. Didn't tell nobody.
Yeah.
George Fan, who had a very good year with Houston.
He played, right?
He didn't even play. He got to the first, right before the first week and walked away. George Fant, 2023, 2024. I mean, he had a good year. Houston didn't resign him. Michael Dieter, Trent Brown, Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Ed Ingram. So this final year, he goes 2 for 2. And I really want to go 1.5 because Trent Brown didn't play the full season.
Yeah.
These are major concerns. And I get it. You do not want to pay Titus Howard moving forward. But now you have to replace 4 offensive linemen, and the belief is he's not going to get it done. And you do not have a major bag like a lot of teams they got an outright salary cap. Houston going to have to restructure and move some things around. So now the question is, okay, is it 1 vet and 2 rookies? Is it 2 vets and 1 rookie? But now you're looking at the hole you're going to have to fill at offensive line. Does it take away from other areas of the team like a tight end? Do they go young in the draft with the tight end, or do they look for a veteran tight end? A lot of people like Charlie Kohler, Baltimore tight end, played tight end 3 for him in that role. But for Caserio, what is it? What is it that we can lean on? Like, we can lean on you to get DBs, no problem. Not a problem in the world.
Not a problem in the world.
I can trust you to go get a defender up front. I can't trust you to put that offensive line together. And now your back is really against the wall because Titus Howard is 2 positions in 1.
And I had this discussion earlier today, and I think that for me, the only way to get me on board with kind of moving the way that you're moving, and it's hard to imagine this, but like, I think you got to go spend some actual cash on an offensive lineman.
Absolutely.
I'm talking pipe dream scenario. I'm talking Linderbaum. I'm talking whoever. I'm talking top of the market. Somebody that's anchoring this line for you. Because that's the one thing that he's not done. He's never gone out and done that. And I'm not saying that you have to live through free agency, but look at the Bears last season. Bears went out and spent a ton of money on their offensive line. Now they got a coach that, knows ball and knows how to call some plays too. And a quarterback that was suddenly protected and looked like a quarterback that was worthy of that first pick. But look what happens when you invest into the offensive line. I'm done with this. We can plug and play. That's what it always feels like. We can plug and play, and it clearly doesn't work.
And to add to that point, I'm not being sold on Trent Brown.
No.
I'm not being sold on Trent Brown.
33 years old.
I think the age is a problem. The size and the weight is a problem. The injury history is a problem. He's a big dude. Can he stay healthy? The availability is an issue and concern. When he was out there, he was good. But then Houston needed him against the New England Patriots. But where was he? He was out due to injury. So for Houston, it's either, we got to figure out if Blake Fisher can get it done, man. Or it's either we got to go really young in the draft to kind of supplement other areas of needs on this team in some way, form, or fashion. And can Houston afford to go young with offensive linemen? Yeah. I'm curious to see how much money they create in salary cap moves and restructures because Linderbaum's going to cost $20 million. That's a lot. Then you have to worry about next year and that salary. So it's frustrating to see it simply because anytime there's been a plan brought up the following season, it made no sense.
Yeah. It's a giant mystery, and there's a lot of layers to this that still exist. They also said goodbye to somebody else, and they also welcomed somebody else. What does all of this mean? We got a lot more room to cover here on the Locked On Texans Squad show.
Let's do it.
Before we get there, though, this episode's brought to you by Betterhelp. March is time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to just recognize how much they carry at work, in relationships and families, and in the all unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. Look, I am very lucky. I got a woman like that in my life. My wife is the absolute rock to this family. Celebrate them, but also realize when they got a lot of that stuff going on to be there for them. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Locked On Texans Squad show. I didn't realize it was International Women's Month, John. We gotta celebrate our ladies. But we're
shout
here.
out to Silent Sarah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Miss Kim Davis.
Shout out to the ladies out there watching the show tonight. If you're
if
you're a lady watching the show, get in the comments. Let us know that you're watching the show. But obviously we've discussed. Oh, look who's here. Hold on one second. He's here. There's Stan. Hey, Stan.
What's happening?
We were just spreading the gospel of how upset we are that it's going to be another year of plug and play of the Houston Texans offensive line. I'm sure you're thrilled about it.
Is it Repo Wednesday? Is that what's going on?
No. I have a civic organization that I volunteer at, so we got some volunteer stuff happening right now. So I think I had to step out, and I think I owe it to you guys to give you my perspective on what's going on as it pertains to the Texans. So here's the deal, right? Are we going O-line first, or are we going running back first?
We were saving Montgomery for a little bit later.
Okay, so O-line, here's the deal. This is back-to-back years you got rid of your best offensive lineman. Tell me any other time in NFL history that you can recall a team saying, we moved on in back-to-back years from both our linemen, both first-rounders, both have made a ton of money from us, but we'll be okay when they leave. Now, I'm not saying, the ship is sinking and they have no chance. What I am saying is, was the offensive line better this year? In some metrics, yes. In some metrics, no. The personnel was all over the place. Week 1, rotating left guards. Trent Brown comes back, I think, around week 7, week 8, and changes the game. Tytus Howard, I think, started the game or at least played snaps at 4 to 5 positions other than center. Like, at some point, doesn't it feel like the Texans are trying to catch lightning in a bottle as it pertains to the offensive line? Like, at some point, don't you have to go, all right, you can't just continue to boot quality offensive linemen out the building. And you can't tell me, last thing, and I want to hear what y'all have to say. You can't tell me because because Titus is going to average, 21, 22 million a year? That's not the question what he got. The question should be, what would he have taken to stay in Houston? Guys take less to stay here sometimes. Maybe $1 million, maybe $2 million. You don't think he would have taken any less to stay in Houston?
And here's why. Here's my logic behind that. And I talked about it with MC and a little bit on the show. I think Tytus Howard has been moved around so much in his career that it's taken away from him being an established player at a position. And I think we can all agree 2025 was his best year. Obviously, he's playing tackle and guard, but just imagine what his accolades could have possibly looked like if he was just at tackle or if he started all games at left guard. And so when I look at Tytus Howard in his future and him being a team player and versatile, I think he's looking at the management and saying to himself, guys, I'm doing this for y'all. In return, if I can't play at a level where it can get me to a Pro Bowl, which every player plays for, or give me an All-Pro vote, which every player plays for, then I need that other thing that I'm playing for. And I need that money. And I do think Nick Caserio looked out for him for sending him to Cleveland because Cleveland does not have offensive line at all. All 5 of them guys are free agents. Right. So they had to pay him. But in many ways, I don't think Howard would have taken a hometown discount simply because he's been discounted his career at being moved around so much.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. I don't think Howard gets to 23 or 21, 22 million if he didn't have the versatility. I think the versatility, when you got 5 linemen that are leaving in Cleveland, the fact that we can pay you as a tackle, knowing you have a lot of tape, you got a lot of starts playing other things, I think adds to his value. Now, we'll never know. We weren't on the phone with what's going on with the Haslam family, whoever's the GM now. Matthew Berry's over there, or is Matthew Berry out? Is Berry still over there in Cleveland?
Who knows?
Putting it together and making it make sense. So for me, that's the number one. Then you ask the question, do we trust Nick Caserio to replace 4 starters outside of Laramie. I mean, I keep wanting to say Laramie. Do we trust Caserio to replace 4 starters outside of Ariante Ursery?
Well,
I don't.
I said this, Stan, and let's see where you are. And I asked John this. I think they're at the point you have to keep Ed Ingram, correct?
No, because if
You
I'm
don't
going to
think
pay the
so?
money, if I'm going to keep the money to pay Ed, then I'll keep the money to pay Titus because I get a guard and a tackle. So
Well,
if
Titus
Ed
was
is
due 27 this year. They was going to restructure it. And Ingram
If
is at
if you're
15.
going to pay, you remember the report was he was looking from anywhere to 15 to 18. So if Ed is going to get 18, I'd rather have Titus at 21. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, Nick Caserio floats in that $3 million for 1 year bargain bin so much that he needs that $3 million.
And then
He'll get a backup depth player for 2.7 mil.
Caserio. So that's that lightning in the bottle I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How many times you going to live off of that? Everybody knows the lifeblood of building an NFL operation and having consistency and stability is through the draft. So let's talk about sending out Juice Scruggs. I know we'll get to the Montgomery deal.
Yeah, we hadn't even mentioned we got to pour one out for Juice Scruggs, who Tom Pelissero wanted to pump up as a block of granite.
Hey, that was so crazy. That's why it's important to listen to local reporters because when I saw that, I didn't respond to it. I didn't feel
that
like I
one
had
and
to.
the Nick Chubb one from Ian Rappaport calling him resurgent.
I said, "Come on, y'all, come on, man!" But shout out to Juice though.
Here's the deal: we can now say it with certainty. Caserio has missed on second round Juice Scruggs. Caserio missed on second round John Mechie III. Caserio missed on first round Kenyon Green. Blake Fish is trending in the right direction for me. So, Jake Andrews, that was your guy. Jake Andrews was your guy from New England, and now you already want to replace him as center. So it's like, when I sit here and think about, and then you want the quarterback to go be better. You want the quarterback to go be better, but you keep remaking the line
every year,
every single year.
Every year.
And the guys that have proven to be best for you, you ship them out. So you're not bringing in. I'm going to say it again. Laremy Tunsil was the best offensive lineman that Houston would have had this season. The second best offensive lineman that Houston had this season was Tytus Howard, meaning if Laremy was still around. So your top 2 out, and you're replacing them with Scruggs that's gone and Fisher that can't get starts for you at the positions that you drafted him to be at. You got to create a jumbo package tight end role for a second rounder you traded up to go get. Like, how many opportunities is the GM going to be afforded to do this? And you watch what I tell you, they're going to do it again this year. They're going to go back into the draft. Go ahead.
No, I wonder.
I was going to say real quick. I'm going to make you guys. I was going to say, I'm going to make you guys feel really good because I asked the question today on the radio about that we've asked on this show. What's Nick Caserio's contract status? And somebody that would know sent a text message in. It says he signed an extension before last year. I don't know if it's that's. I'm just telling you what was. I'm just telling you what somebody told me. I don't know if it's right or not. Who knows? Because these things, they don't get reported sometimes. John, you're muted, by the way. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I don't think Caserio has done an awful job all the way around. I think he's done some very, very good things. However, in this game of pro football, one of the things that matters the most is the functionality of the offensive line. Now, people are going to point to the sack percentage was down. People are going to point to, statistics like that. The touchdowns were up, I think, from the previous year. Bottom line is, this is still one of the worst red zone teams in the league. This is still one of the worst pass block win rate teams in the league. This is still a team that struggles on third down. So how we keep trying to blame CJ. And we all know I'll be blaming the play caller for some of this. But at some point, that offensive line is what it is. Why does the offensive line production not mesh with the abilities of the quarterback? Somebody's got to get that together. And how many drafts are we going to ask or entrust Casario to do it? Now, he's going to stand on Ariante Ursery. He's going to say, see, I took Ursery. We traded back, and we took Ursery. And a lot of mock drafts that I see have them trading back this year, trading out of 28 and go do the same thing and double down on the offensive line in the draft. You're trusting your Super Bowl aspirations and the production of your franchise quarterback. This is CJ Stroud's biggest year in football he's ever had. And you're going to put him out there with a second-year tackle, 2 rookies, and some Band-Aid offensive linemen? The formula doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to add to that. I do think, based on some conversations, I do think they view this tackle class extremely high. I think that the Houston Texans like Pregnon out of Oregon, and they feel like they may be able to get him in the second round. But the issue that I have with moving on from Tytus Howard is this. Like we talked about, you got to replace 4 guys because you can't go in the next season with Andrews as your starting center. Titus Howard, especially this year, was 2 positions in one, guard and tackle. So the crossroad is in free agency, where does this money you're going to create go? Now, if you only target top-end players, you're risking, if you do not get a top-end player and all of those tier 2 players are taken off the board, then now what's happening? You got to settle for a Lincoln Tomlinson again, right? So you got to worry about that. You also got to look at, because Houston now has, I think they still have 8 draft picks in this year's draft class. Will all of those assets, especially early on, be delegated to offensive line picks? Because one thing that I'm tired of is this team bargaining and being cheap when it comes to the tight end spot, especially when they get to the draft where it's a 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, 7th-round pick, and these players don't pan out. And so the top-tier talent that I think this team needs at that position for now and for the future to eventually take over for Dalton Schultz, you got to spill some draft capital on that. But their back is against the wall to where priority, if you don't hit on the offensive lineman that you want in free agency, I can't go get a top guy in this year's draft at that position, at the tight end position. So it puts them in a weird spot, and it feels like, Casario, you have no trust with anybody in the city of Houston to figure this thing out. And we could be wrong, but we could absolutely be right.
It's this spiral that just seems like it's never going to change. I think that's the biggest issue here. And I look at, guys, the cap space, they're currently at the moment, in terms of projections, $13 million over the cap. There's only 3 other teams at the moment that have less cap space than they do. I said it a minute ago. I want them to be a team that goes out and spins on something. But you're right, John. Like, you can't go and blow, based on what they've done to their financial situation, you can't go blow your load all on one player. I don't know how you make that work to fix things for this football team. That's what scares me the most, is that you've painted yourself into a corner now that I don't know that you can get out of. And then when you need to get out of it, oh, wait, we have to make a decision on the quarterback to pay him a ton of money when that time comes. It seems like a no-win situation.
And I mean, like, they have to be level-headed and reasonable about their approach. You're going to find some good guys. Like the Cowboys just released Huffman, who was a center guard for them, and my guy Marcus Mosher, who does Locked On Cowboys, Brock Hoffman. Marcus says he's a starting interior offensive line in the NFL and will provide an edge to any unit. I like that word, edge. And he also finished out with, I think he's going to be a quality signing. And I also saw a couple of other tweets where he mentioned that he can see Hoffman getting picked up very quickly. So there's going to be some players out there. And because of some of these moves, a lot of us have to readjust our thinking and our process of how to rebuild this offensive line. It doesn't necessarily have to be big names. And in some cases for Houston, those big names sometimes don't pan out, right? It has to be players that fit. One thing I don't want the Houston Texans to do, though, is getting caught up with some of these older guys that has a history of injuries the past 2 seasons. And that screams stay away from those Cleveland Browns.
Stay away from anything Cleveland. We also need to talk about the player that they brought in. Let's do that here in a second. Locked on Texans Squad Show.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Well, there is one guy that the Texans did bring in, and Stan is back too, by the way, over the past few days. So they make the big news, the big splash, and obviously the offensive line equation of this. We said it the other day, and we're going to say it again here. Guess what, guys? We're going to spend the majority of this summer, I think, discussing offensive line, basically at least once a segment, because there's going to be a question mark until they fill those spots and how they fill those spots. They bring in David Montgomery, the guy we talked about Sunday, who wanted out of the Detroit. And they go ahead and make the deal for him. He's got, 2 years left on his contract?
$6 million.
$6 million and $9 million or
Yeah,
something?
it goes up a little bit in 2027.
Yeah. What do we think of this move overall to get David Montgomery in here?
Well,
obviously giving up Juice Scruggs.
Let's just say, next time we want to talk about putting it together on the lotto, let me give y'all the numbers, because just last week, right, I talked about David Montgomery. But I love the move. Now, the problem for me goes back to the offensive line. He's coming from Detroit, where that offensive line was stout. They created rushing lanes. But in terms of what the Houston Texans need, at this stage in his career, and I looked the numbers up, the last 2 seasons, 31st and 27th in rushing attempts, because Jahmyr Gibbs takes off. And so now you're looking at a running back that doesn't have the amount of taxes on his body. When he has a good offensive line in front of him, he's a very good per pop runner, right? And I also love that it wouldn't necessarily take away from Houston adding to their running back room, to where I think they view it similar to the New England Patriots did for years. Let's get 3 guys that can do 3 different things. Let's use them throughout the game, however the game plan looks, to kind of dictate what the opposing defenses could do against us defensively, and we'll play off of that. So I love the move. And I think at this stage in his career, I know people are getting caught up in the age, and for some reason, people care about 4th-round picks now. When did we ever care about 4th-round picks?
You shouldn't with Nick Casario's draft history.
But they got a 5th back for Titus Howard, so now they have 2 5th-round picks. They still have a 4th-round pick, and we know that Nick Casario is not afraid to move up and down the board, so I can see a scenario where he takes those 2 5th-rounders and move up to get a player that they like. But I like the addition of David Montgomery because I think he adds the toughness that this running back room needs.
David Montgomery is not as good as Joe Mixon, but his play style is very similar in the sense of the physicality that they run with, right? These are professional tier, I ain't gonna want to say tier 1, but tier 1A. Montgomery has started in this league and could start in this league and will be starting in this league again. He's a legitimate runner. The play style complements Woody Marks excellently. We'll see if DeWalt Jordan can get healthy or if they do add a back, whether it be somebody in free agency for pennies on the dollar or going to draft and get somebody. But we'll see. The interesting thing about Montgomery is, will they have to offer an extension similar to what they did with Joe Mixon when they traded for him? I think the draft capital did go up a little bit because it sounds like the Denver Broncos came in the 11th hour and took that package. Now, here's where I think the question is as we pause. Everybody knows David Montgomery's nickname, Knuckles. going to the whole Sonic the Hedgehog thing then. All right, but here's what we got to discuss. Would you rather have David Montgomery for a 4th, a 7th, and Juice Scruggs, or would you rather just give him the 3rd for Brees Hall, a younger running back with more upside?
In
I would have
season
taken
or right now?
at that time and right now.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, both. Yes to both.
How are you giving him for a 3rd, though? That's my question.
Because that's what the Jets wanted in real time at the trade deadline from last year. They wanted a 3rd-round pick. So had Caserio just come up off the 3rd-round pick, then it would have cost him less capital than what he had to output. What is it, a 4th, a 7th, and Juice Scruggs. Not saying Scruggs is great. We do know 4th and 7th-round picks typically don't pan out per se, even though, 64% of the league is undrafted and late-round picks. And that's just by sheer volume if you do the math. But point is, I would have rather given a 3rd for a younger, a little bit better. And let me be clear, because y'all know how I feel about aliens. Brees Hall gives you more pop. He gives you more home run ability. Now, people are going to say, wait a minute, Stan, look how many touchdowns David Montgomery had last year. He had a ton. He put in work. I like the player. But when you think about if they had to offer him a contract extension, then I would much rather have Brees Hall and have given him an extension. Right. A player that's had 3 1,000-yard seasons, a player that's a little bit better, a little bit more upside, a little bit more home run ability for me.
But I think New York wants to keep Brees Hall. I think that they
didn't tag him, so he's a free agent.
No, I think didn't they add the?
They didn't give him the full franchise. They gave him the exclusive rights or something.
No, they
gave him the full tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got
gotcha. All right. Oh, that him and Cal Pitts Sr. did too. Okay, still, the conversation still remains. Knowing what it costs you to get Montgomery now, you could have gotten Hall then at the deadline for a 3rd. Would you have done it? In hindsight,
Absolutely.
I say yes.
We talked about that in real time. Go ahead and give it up and make that move, because that would allow for Houston to kind of dictate, how they want to go about keeping Brees Hall. But I do think the Jets really view him as a player that I think they view it. Let's get a couple more picks here on the offensive side of the ball. We got all these picks the next 2 years. Brees Hall could absolutely get us out of the dog days, which is where they've been in since 2011, it feels like. And I'm happy the Jets have been that bad. That is the Patriot fan of me talking. But for David Montgomery, again, a player of his caliber and what he's used to, it goes back to, hey, Caserio, great trade. You got a great player. And I'm not scared of the age. But the extension of that is, hey, brother, technically you only got 2 starting offensive linemen right now.
That part.
And one of them is Jake Andrews. So what are you going to do to fill those other 4 spots to make sure that he's in a situation where he's comfortable, where it's familiar? Love the trade, love the player, hate the situation right now.
You guys are forgetting one key element of acquiring David Montgomery. Can you guess what it is?
Houston is a better city than Detroit.
That's a fact.
Mean, that's it, but that's not what I'm looking for.
That's not the key element. Okay.
I give you one
Under
guess.
Contract for 2 more years?
No.
Yeah.
Where did he play his college ball?
Oh my God. Another Cyclone. So we got John Carroll in Iowa State, rather.
They taking over, Stan.
We got John Carroll at Iowa State.
It's taking over.
Unbelievable.
It's the Houston, Iowa. It's the Houston Cyclones. This is what they are now. They're Houston Cyclones.
And so, in all seriousness, man, like, people would tell us, hey, yeah, Caserio winning the bargain bin last year, and he came out with Cam Robinson, Ed Ingram, Laken Tomlinson, and Trent Brown. 50% of that allotment ended up being a part of a team that didn't win the division but won 12 games and got to the divisional round. Caserio would have us believe the year before that. We talked so much about, is that George Fant? That was that right tackle that year that he went and got?
Yep.
So Caserio would tell us, hey, guys, I've shown that I can go get guys that aren't household names that still contribute to us winning a ton of football games. I would say, yeah, but your quarterback wasn't, the expectations weren't then where they are now, and your quarterback wasn't faced with the adversity now, and certainly didn't have that then. So my point is the circumstances have changed. So his strategy must evolve. They can free up $50 million in cap room with the release of Joe Mixon and the restructure of Nico. Who was it? Nico, the Neil Hunter, and Sting.
Mm-hmm.
They can restructure those three, cut Joe Mixon, and that's $50 million in cap space.
Why haven't they cut Joe Mixon yet? Why haven't we heard that news?
League, I think the league year doesn't start till next Wednesday, so I think they have to wait. I think officially they have to wait. I'm not sure about that, but I think so. So, okay, even if you have $50 million in cap space, you aren't allocating all of that to the offensive line. Now, a good chunk of it will. I don't doubt that they're going to be in play. Well, maybe not a Linderbaum, but maybe it is a Cade Mays. And some people are saying for the $21 million that Titus is going to get in Cleveland, you can get 2 starters up front. And in principle, that makes sense. But you got to get 2 starters that play well in this system, that understand what's at stake, that are coachable, that are good locker room and culture fish. You know how D'Amico feels about the Swarm, that understand what type of season this is for the quarterback. This entire season might as well be labeled the C.J. Stroud season because everything is hinging on him. Not that it hadn't before, but he's never been here. And now you're asking him to do it with another new runner, and now you got to go fix the offensive line again. It's just, to me, it's not fair to Stroud to put him in these types of environments.
MC, did you say a caller? I just wanted to circle back to this. Did you say a caller called in and say
it wasn't a caller, just somebody that texted in that's in the know of things. Sent a text in where we were talking about it and said that Casero signed an extension before last season.
Has that been reported?
I don't know. No, there's no report out there. I'm just telling you.
But what I'm saying is if that was the case, that means
true,
Caserio got an extension before D'Amico, which is crazy.
Which he could have one too.
The McNairs, possibly, presumably, allegedly, whatever, gave Caserio an extension before the start of last season? What in the hell?
I hope that person's information is wrong. I hope. I have no idea. I'm just passing along something that was said.
Jobs in the NFL are hard to get, as a man has spent at least a season in that conference room reporting to a GM in this league. It's a unfathomably difficult task to be a GM. However, he was offered the job, he accepted the job, and we must evaluate him for doing his job. And he has hit some home runs. But specifically on the offensive line, which happens to be uber important, and we've run out of time. We can't even get into the defensive line because he's got to put some resources over there as well. So they've got to get this stuff cleaned up. And, Montgomery, welcome to Houston. I love his winning pedigree. I love his competitiveness. He's going to bring some of that grit from up there in the NFC North. But when Montgomery breaks the huddle, he's looking at Jake Andrews' butt and Jared Patterson, who might have to start at guard. And no disrespect, JP, I like you better at center. I would have never brought Jake Andrews in here anyway, but I've been saying that. They got to go do something. And I just don't know that rookies and maybe one significant free agent signing on the offensive line is enough to catapult this team into the AFC title game. So today, I have some concerns, and those concerns will heighten if they have to spend some of that restructured new cap space to give Montgomery an extension. I can't wait to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that one's going to be very interesting to see if he does get any kind of new money there. Let's wrap things up with our game plan now for how we want to see them move forward and what do we think they're going to do moving forward next year on the Locked On Texans Squad Show. All right, we're right back to it on the Squad Show. Michael Connor, Stan Norfleet, John Hickman with you. We're talking your Houston Texans who have had a busy week so far. We didn't even hit legal tampering yet, which is going to be really, really fun to see what happens. All right, do you guys think they make more splashes at all? And if they do, is it via free agency or is it via more trades?
I could see a scenario. I see 2 scenarios where if everything goes right for Houston in rebuilding the offensive line and free agency, they can trade up to go get King and Sadiq at tight end. But I also want to say that I can see a scenario where free agency is solid and they'll trade up to get themselves a tackle. From what I've heard, I mean, I think that the team believes this is a good tackle class. And let's face it, they got to replace Titus Howard. Stan, I don't think we've asked you about it, but I'm not putting a full season on Trent Brown, man. Not doing that.
You can't. He's still coming off a patella, and when you needed him the most in the playoff game, he wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
At New England.
So I could see Houston. I could see Houston, in many ways, just having a solid free agency where they filled a couple of positions. They got some guys in that, from play-wise, are difference makers, better than the guys that they had last year, but at a reasonable cost, and they'll use the capital that they currently have to trade up and get themselves a tackle. Because I think Pregnon is going to be available in the second round. I think they want to get one of those premier tackles to pair alongside Ariante Ursery, and that's how they may end up figuring this thing out.
What the fans would consider splash? No, they're done.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion. I don't think. I think the Texans have more holes than they're willing to admit. Right? You need really 3 starters up front, right? You really need 3 up front. Okay, you did attack the running back situation. So you got 3 up front. You need another receiver. By the way, y'all see Steph Diggs? They did not bring him back. He's a cap casualty.
Is he a cap casualty with also a choke casualty?
Oh man.
I don't know that all that's on him.
I'm just asking.
I don't know that. So my point is, you need another receiver, you need a young defensive tackle, and you still need to re-sign a defensive tackle to go start for you, for somebody to go alongside Sheldon Rankins.
Hey, Jonathan Allen was released.
Cap casualty.
Yeah. So imagine Allen under Roy Wright with them 2 guys on the outside.
Oh yeah, you can get something done.
That's nasty.
No question. So to me, it's just, when you say splash, MC, like, give me a name. Trent Williams. Do I think they can afford to do a Trent Williams deal? Right now, today, no. Could they create the space? Yes. At what cost? What is it going to cost you? That's what makes this interesting. Caserio, and that's what people have been saying, Stan, don't jump on the deal yet. Give Caserio a chance. I'm like, how many times we got to watch the same movie? And just because that defense was good enough this year to bail him out, and the offense was good enough in 2023 to bail him out, we're going to just trust that that's going to happen again this year?
Nope.
I don't know. I'm not convinced in that. I just don't know. So that's, and guys, I hate to do it to you, but that's my parting shot. Y'all know I got my philanthropy going on. So we were supposed to go yesterday, and shame on me for throwing the ball in, but I trust that you will navigate the remainder of this program. Thanks to everybody, but that's my parting shot. Maybe Caserio pulls magic, but I don't anticipate fireworks from here on out.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder who's available out there to even trade for. That's a good lineman. I can't think. And a good lineman are rarely traded. Joe Thuney was a free agent.
Oh, Joe Thuney was a free agent. So Braden Smith at right tackle is a free agent. They just released Jawan Taylor from Kansas City. I'm just telling you who's out there. This is what you're dealing with. They said Batonio may retire and Teller
of age, and he regressed last year.
So it's like you're running out of legit options here. So I don't know, man. But anyway, gentlemen, I'm sorry. Let me slide. Appreciate y'all. Thanks everybody that support us on the Locked On Texans Squad Show. We'll catch y'all again end of the week.
End of the week? We'll see you, Stan.
All right. Peace to y'all.
Peace.
There's good old Stan. Yeah, John, I'm trying to find a way to make it feel like there's going to be some sort of splash or something. I think the closest thing to a splash would be just landing another receiver at this point. And the only thing I would even say is a splash would be the guy we talked about the other day is bringing Mike Evans home. That's about all I could say.
Yeah, it's but for Houston, I feel like a splash could get in the way of what the hell is really needed. Like if they go out and get a top 1 or 2 center prospects. Is that a splash or is that just a good job? You did what was need to be done. A splash feels like it has to be sexy. And I don't think this needs to be a sexy free agency. Draft is different.
Yeah.
But this shouldn't be a sexy free agency. This should be hey, man, we're going to pull our pants up and get to work. And so, like for I'm thinking who's available around the league from an offensive lineman standpoint that's worth trading for. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now.
And here's the thing, the truth. If you're trading offensive linemen that are worth you know what, it's because they either are towards the end of their time or they need new money.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason. So yeah, I can't wrap my head around that. I think they're going to go with, like you said, they're going to go with rookies more than anything. They're going to draft somebody higher, and maybe long term it works out. But man, that's a gamble.
And again, I don't want to rule out Blake Fisher getting the shot. I mean, he did put some good things on tape. It wasn't perfect, but he put some good things on tape last year. He only started one game, which was a Chargers game. He came in, I think, midway through the second quarter against Denver. Was that Samson? I think it was Denver game. Mm-hmm. So obviously, he didn't like the snaps that he played majority of the year. They were regulated to jumbo packages. But yeah, I go back to I don't think it needs to be a splash. I just think it needs to be, okay, we got a guy that can help us up front. Now let's go find another one. Because the Atlanta Falcons, they franchise tag Kyle Pitts. Chig Okonkwo from Tennessee has been let go. Charlie Kohler, but he wouldn't be a splash. None of those guys would be splashes. Unless you're getting a tier one guy, the rest of the moves, even at center, the rest of the moves are just, okay, you did what you needed to do.
You know what I need? I just need the off season to hurry up, because this little limbo period that we're in right now where we don't know is the most, as a fan, is the most anxiety driven part of it.
It is. Because
right now, with what we can only go off of what we have, and what we have, as we've talked about this whole entire night, is that they have literally no offensive line.
No.
And
they got Airstream.
Yeah, I shouldn't. Can he play?
Andrews.
Can he snap and then cover every single guy out there?
They're gonna find out. They're gonna definitely find out. No, they're in trouble. And as a matter of fact, is Andrews on a contract?
I thought he was.
Let me look
I thought
that
he had
up.
another year. Didn't we talk about this at some point? Jake Andrews' contract. Hold on. You know, me and my Google. I can get the Google going here. I believe he had one more year. Maybe it was still his rookie. Did he get released in that rookie deal? He's got
yes.
Yeah, he's got one.
This is his last year
at $1 million. So it's
so this year he is projected to make 3.6.
3.6 this year. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at the wrong year. So that's got to be. Well, then he is a free agent, right? Or this is just the last year of it?
This is the last year. He's an unrestricted free agent next year.
Okay.
23, 24, 25, and 26, the rookie year deal. So this is his last year.
It's a Nick Caserio special.
Houston got to figure this out, man. And here's the thing: if this blows up in their face, I'm not gonna blame CJ Stroud and his agency. They say, you know what, man, we're getting up out of here.
You see, I just don't think it's ever going to get to that extreme. I can't see it from the standpoint of, I don't think they're going to be bad enough for that. They're still good enough. Like, even with an average offensive line, they won 12 games. Even with a bad offensive line, they won 10 games. Like, I just see it as, I could see him maybe getting tired of it, but I don't know, man. And
that's what I'm getting at, because that's 23 was great, 24, 25, 26. The offensive line in 24 was god awful. The offensive line in 25 was decent, but you weren't able to run the ball. And then now for 26, I'm looking at 2 back-to-back seasons without my top guys. Now, granted, for Stroud, he has to be better in a lot of different ways. I think we can agree on that. But from a situational standpoint, like the environment, shout out to the dog, the environment is just not the greatest. And it's been that way for a while. And it has never felt like the Houston Texans in one offseason did. Has it felt like they did everything they needed to do to complement the offense in one offseason? Like, it feels like, okay, you go out in 24, you get Diggs and Mixon, but you don't refix the offensive line.
Yeah.
The following year, you make some offensive line changes, but you also don't get playmakers back, and you assess the running back room and situation terribly. So it hadn't felt like one offseason everything was properly assessed to have a successful offseason for the offensive side of the ball, and that's a problem.
Yeah. At some point, you have to go all in. You've talked about it. You have to go all in. You can't keep sitting around and waiting. You have to go all in and go for it with this offensive line, especially with this defense in the window that you're in. All right, you want to give the people your parting shot here tonight?
I'm gonna take a few of these if I found out Nick Caserio got his extension already.
Hey, I'm with you. I hope that's wrong.
It just doesn't make sense to me. That's my parting shot. I'm not a Nick Caserio hater per se, and I think, again, the one thing that I think Nick Caserio has done, which in many ways, in my opinion, has made him genius, those 3-year max contract deals have been amazing for Houston. That said, this team has failed to reach the AFC Championship game since arriving. Granted, he had to rework the situation with Deshaun and had to roll with Davis Mills for a couple of years. So a lot of what we're looking at is since 2023 till now. And that's a perfect window to judge him on. But it would be, in a lot of ways, just backwards if they would have signed him early before finishing out this window of the 2026 window, 27 window, which closes next year, without getting an opportunity to figure out if he's done enough to get this roster to a place where it's competitive. So if that's true, I just think that's just irresponsible on the behalf of the McNairs.
I would agree with you. It would not surprise me at all if this text message that we received today was accurate, just because, I mean, the McNairs have always had a history of giving out contracts to people that unfortunately maybe don't deserve them. So, again, I hope
that's paid Lovie Smith and Cully, huh?
David Culley's got to be off the books by now. Has to. There's just no way he's got any money left on that deal. If he does, props to him for securing a 4-year. Like, I think I heard from somebody, it's like a 4-year, $24 million deal at the time. Like, they literally paid for that man's retirement.
No, for real. And I'm jealous.
I am too. What a life. My parting shot is just, I know that we get worked up about it. I get worked up. We all do. I'm going to give him a second. The offseason just started. I'm not going to completely judge it yet. Am I antsy? Yes. I think we can all be antsy for a minute. Let's let it play out for a second, right. See what happens. And then hope and pray we get surprised. For John, I am Michael. Thank you for stopping by and watching for Stan as well. We'll be back later on this week for another edition, maybe with more things to talk about because Nick Caserio loves to wheel and deal. We'll do it right here on the Locked On Texans Squad Show.